Hello everyone. This is a recording that I wanted to make right after the rant that I regurgitated out of anger and spite and frustration on the night that the Saints lost to the Eagles 21-24. While I still agree with a few things that I said and will probably repeat here, I'm no longer fueled by that negative emotion, and I'm going to try not to speak in hyperbole this time. I want to touch up on several main points and explain myself a little better through this logical lens that I'd rather put myself through instead of just being this hyper emotional fucking idiot, you know? In other words, I'm about to let y'all know that I do not hate this team. So let's start with the first one here. The season is still worth watching, straight up. And I've said this in my rant so many times that the season doesn't matter, who cares, it's the same fucking shit, why bother? And that's just a really bad way of looking at things in general. It's a really horrible way to just experience your favorite team, whether they're bad or they're good. In listening to myself here, I can see why many people get annoyed when I'm like that during game day. Because it's just like, why the fuck are you watching this team? Like, why are you watching football if you get so emotionally attached to it to a point where it just ruins your fucking day and you've got nothing but bad things to say about the team that you so-called root for? It's stupid, you know? Yeah, I want to see them succeed. I don't want to see them lose. But listening to myself like that is just... why? Like, come on, man. You've been watching this team for much longer than you're sounding right now. Like, you should know that this is a modus operandi for the Saints. You know, they do this shit all the time. And that's exactly why you watch them. Because they do this shit all the fucking time. I guess it's boring to be a Patriots fan because, you know, all they do is win, 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 and win. I can't imagine the fun that Patriots fans are having this season, seeing their team finally be shit and having the suspense of, oh, is our team actually going to make the playoffs this time? Instead of just guaranteeing yourself, oh, that's another Super Bowl victory, add that to the ring collection. This season is worth watching, man. And I'm going to touch up on my second point here. We don't know what's really going to happen until it happens. Okay, they're 10-3. While it may be possible that they finish 13-3 and lose in the playoffs again, as high as those chances are, we don't know if that's going to happen until it actually happens. One thing I really failed to touch up on enough is the fact that in those playoff seasons that we got embarrassed in, 2017, we won in the wild card round. Like, we beat the Carolina Panthers 3 times that year. It was like a 3-game sweep. It was so fucking sweet, man. Because Panther fans were talking that shit. They were talking all that bullshit. Talking about how they're gonna go up in the dome and trounce us and all that crazy bullshit. And we just we made them motherfuckers look stupid. That was a really satisfying win. And of course, we all know how 2017 actually ended. It was a game they went into playing against the Minnesota Vikings. They were getting the shit kicked out of them for the first 3 quarters, and they made a miraculous fucking comeback. And I think it all started with a Taysom Hill punt block, and it was just I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was like, is this team actually gonna fucking win? That's what I thought at the last second. I think we were up 23, 21. I don't even know what it was. We were up by maybe 2 or 1 point. And we had such little time to win that. And then the fucking play happened. And I'm not going to bring it up because we all know what we're talking about. So we won a playoff game in that season. And then 2018 happened. We won a whole bunch of games and shit. Again, I mean, I don't know if they actually played in the wild card round. No, they didn't. They had the first round bye because they were the 1 seed, I think. So what happened is that in the divisional game, they beat up on an Eagles team that was still riding Big Dick Nick magic. And I thought they could have lost that game, but, you know, I'm glad that the Saints didn't. So the NFC Championship game happens against the Rams. They get an early lead on them, and then the Rams catch up and tie the game. And then, you know, it's just one shootout after another because both defenses couldn't play. Right when we're trying to ice the fucking game, we're trying to fucking run the clock out, we get hosed on a no-call pass interference that should have been fucking called. on, I think, Groby Hartman. I don't know what the fuck his name is. Who cares, really? Fuck that guy. He totally interfered with Tommy Lee Lewis. But at the same time, fuck Tommy Lee Lewis' stupid ass for not laying on the ground and just selling that shit. Probably would have gotten a flag. I'm not going to talk too much about that because every Saints fan on the earth wants to blame that moment for why we lost that game, when it was really us winning the overtime fucking coin and Drew Brees just getting hit and throwing a fucking interception. Like, he threw up a straight up rainbow duck and it landed right into a Rams defender. So the Rams marched down the field. It wasn't really that much field to march down to because I think they were at midfield and they turned the ball over. So they marched down quick enough for Greg Zuerlein kicks the game-winning kick. And then what pissed us off even more was the fact that the Rams faced an old Patriots team in the Super Bowl and only scored 3 points. And the Patriots weren't doing shit that game either. It was such a boring fucking Super Bowl. And I still, to this day, believe that the Rams did not deserve to be there. But it is what it is. It ain't no use crying over spilled milk anymore. You know, that's just how the fucking cookie crumbles. So then 2019 happens. Same old thing. You know, we're winning a bunch of games. It was this year where I didn't really think that the Saints were going to do anything in the playoffs because they sputtered so badly at the end of that year. They lost to the Vikings at home, a team I feel like they should have beaten, and it was the same old thing. They played flat, they came back at the last second, took it to overtime, but their defense couldn't stop a damn thing. And their offense couldn't move the ball. So they lost that game. It was a first round exit, and it was one of those things where I didn't feel much of anything because it was like, if that's how they're going to go out, then that's how they're going to go out. That's the end of an era. It's whatever. And then the Vikings go out to fucking San Francisco and get absolutely fucking just drilled. They get talked out their ass. Angola style. It was bad. I thought that they could have at least made that a game, but nope, they didn't. It's the second time, by the way, that the Vikings have done that shit. Where after beating the Saints in some fucking upset fashion or miraculous fashion, they go out against a clearly better team than them and lay a fucking egg. Because they did that in 2017 after the Minnesota Miracle. They only scored 7 points against the fucking eventual Super Bowl champion Eagles. And, I mean, I enjoyed that a little bit because they were talking all that shit. But it is what it is. So that season happens, and then 2020 happens. You would think that it's probably going to end the same way. While I think it is, it probably won't. The Saints could very well beat the Chiefs. In fact, they could beat the shit out of them, actually, because the Saints have a habit of doing that shit. They are probably the most consistently inconsistent team when it comes to talent evaluation. Like, you don't know how good or bad this team truly is, because one day they'll play like Super Bowl contenders, and the next day they'll play like they didn't deserve to win 10 games, let alone 5. We'll see what happens from here on out, and I'm still going to watch the games. I want to improve my attitude a little bit, because I've been hearing this from a lot of folks who talk to me. That shit's not healthy. It's not healthy to watch the Saints like that, you know? Speaking of, we're going to go into the third point. With my history watching this team in sports in general, it's quite obvious that I'm a late bloomer when it comes to sports. I didn't start really following this shit until I was 14, 15, I think. The first real Saints season that I followed and watched was 2006. And I think it was like in the middle of 2006. Like, I didn't even, like, the Saints weren't really on my radar. Like, neither was sports. The only time it became a thing for me is when I started trying out the Madden games that my father kept playing. And first, it was a little bit jarring. Like, I was like, what the fuck am I doing? Of course, I picked the Saints because it's like, they're the New Orleans Saints. Like, that's the team that's the place that I'm from. That's my team. I have to pick them. Sure enough, every time I played that game, or the more times I played it, I started understanding the game a lot more. And I think I started liking the sport. And I was like, huh. Sorry, cat's meowing. I should probably watch this sport, you know, for real. Now that I know how it works and what actually goes on. So I did, and I really enjoyed myself. The most enjoyable game, the earliest enjoyable game that I watched where I knew what the fuck was going on was, I believe, the game against the Cowboys It was a Sunday night game. They played in the old Texas Stadium. And, like, the Saints absolutely just fucking clobbered the Tony Romo Cowboys. The Cowboys, which fans were saying that they were going to fucking kick our ass because Tony Romo is the best. He's so good. And they got the shit kicked out of him. They got beat by Mike Carney, the fucking fullback. That's how bad it was. And it was just glorious. But that's actually not my first Saints experience. Like, overall, my first real experience watching the Saints, like, ever in general, had to be in 2003, where I watched the ending of the Jacksonville game. This was when they still had Aaron Brooks, and this was when they had Deuce McAllister in his prime. They were fighting for a playoff spot. They started off really well in that season, and then lost a whole bunch of games, and then they were just like they collapsed pretty much. It was a classic Saints collapse. What happened in this game, or what happened at the end, and I remember this shit so fucking vividly. And like, even as a kid who didn't care about sports and didn't know what the fuck was going on at the time, I remember it like it was yesterday. So here's how the play went. Brooks had dropped back to pass. He threw a strike to Dante Stallworth, who stayed in bounds. And, like, the play clock was already expired at that time, but, you know, you could still keep the play going as long as you're not, you know, brought down. He kept it in bounds. He turned up the field a little bit. You know, he looked like he was going to go all the way there. So he runs into a group of defenders, and then he laterals it to Michael Lewis, who was the beer man. You know, his nickname was the beer man. He was a great returner for us. And so he turns, I think, left or something. Like, he turns up the field as well. And then I believe Michael Lewis lateraled it to Deuce McAllister, who turned up the field. And then, like, the best part of this play was when Deuce, I think, got to the 30. I'm not sure what it was. Like, he got pretty close. And then he ran into, like, a group of defenders. And then he laterals it across the field, a backward pass, to this receiver named Jerome Pathon. And he's wide the fuck open. Like, wide open. And he just, like, green grass for days. He jumps into the fucking end zone. And, like, the Saints score a last-second touchdown. It was so fucking cool, because that would have, like, tied the game. And I say would have, because you want to know what happened here? John Carney lines up for the extra point and fucking hooks it wide right. The Saints lose that game by 1 point. Their playoff hopes are practically done by that time. And I remember it like it was yesterday. My father got on his fucking knees, and he was like... He was staring at the TV like, what the fuck? And I watched it too. I was like, Dad, is this how it's like being a Saints fan? And he replied to me, yes, son, this is how it's like being a Saints fan. You didn't have hope, and then you had hope, and then you didn't have hope. Or I can put it like this. I believe, what's his face? Jim Henderson, the old voice of the Saints. He had said it like best. I think it was during a Ditka season, but he had said it like this. Watching the Saints is like having open heart surgery week after week after week after week after week without anesthesia. And that kind of goes for the bad teams. Because as long as I've been watching the Saints team, they haven't been worse than 7-9. I've had it good. Like, I've had it real good as a Saints fan. As a young Saints fan. I've only watched this team for like 15 years or so. Almost 15 years. I don't know. Like, probably more than that. I know I've watched this team for a while now. Like, based on the time that I started watching them. But I've never really watched a truly bad Saints team. And here I am acting like I'm watching a fucking 3-13 squad or something. Like, I gotta calm that shit down, man. I feel like with me, like, it's gonna take a lot longer for someone who wasn't into sports in general, who wasn't into fucking football, to really understand this concept. Like, it's gonna take longer than 15 years. But I'm gonna go into my fourth point here, and it's that my pessimism isn't out of hate, but from experience and being aware of history. I'm so pessimistic because this team has a history of choking. It's not just something that they've been doing for the last 3 years, or 4 or whatever. They've done this shit for a long time. They did it after their Super Bowl season. In fact, they did it during their Super Bowl season sometimes. And they could have, like, ended their season, but, you know, luck was on our side. and we came out on top. But this Saints team has choked much, much worse during the days where I wasn't alive. Like when my father was my age watching this fucking team. Like the new Cleveland Browns first win. Like that's one right there where they got fucked on a fucking Hail Mary. And they lost to the Tim Couch Browns. And I didn't watch that game because, like I said, I was a stupid little kid who didn't care about sports. I cared more about video games. I cared more about playing with my Bionicles and shit. Like I was a kid, all right? I was a kid and I cared about all that shit that kids do. Like I was playing outside. I was doing all that shit that we don't do now. It's history based, man. That's what it is. It's history based. I'm expecting the Saints to do something stupid. And in my mind, that kind of happens. And it just like sours the entire experience for me because it's like, well, the Saints are going to fuck up anyway. What's the point in, having fun room for them? And that's a bad way to think. That's a horrible, horrible way to think. I'd probably enjoy this shit more if I was more optimistic or if I just like relaxed a couple seconds. If I just took a breath and just enjoyed the experience for what it is. Yes, people are going to talk shit. Yes, this team is going to be laughed at, but this team's been laughed at for like 40 some odd years, and even more than that. They've been laughed at all the way up to their 50th season. The Saints have always been a poster child for the NFL follies. And that's just how it's going to be. And I got to accept that, Hell, I got to embrace it, really. I love this fucking team. This team's my fucking baby, okay? I just want to see them succeed. But sometimes it really just it sometimes just gets me. Like seeing them lose to the Eagles, it's just like I'm like an Eagles team that was injured and was starting a rookie quarterback. It just pissed me off because it was just the classic way the Saints usually lay eggs in their good seasons. They lose in that trap game. They get shit on by a rookie quarterback, which is something they've always done, and everybody goes right back to pointing at us and calling us the fraudulent ain'ts. I don't want to say that. Like, I don't want to say that this team is fucking fake, man. And even if it may be true, it still makes me feel bad to say that shit because it's like, I'm rooting for this team, man. I'm rooting for a fraudulent team, and the mindset is like, well, why even bother? People are just gonna laugh at you. Who cares? It's so stupid, man. It is so fucking stupid of me to believe that. I want to just have fun and watch the Saints, whether they're good or bad. Hell, even if they're going 0-16 like the fucking Jets are right now, I would still enjoy watching them. Hell, I would probably root for them to go 0-16 just to see if they can really do it. Hell, they almost fucking did it in 1980 and beat ironically beat the Jets that year by 1 point. And everybody was so fucking happy, man. It was the best shit. And that's just where it comes from, That's where my pessimism really just comes from, because I've seen this shit before, and my mindset leads me to believe that it's going to happen again. And when it happens again, everybody's going to react the same fucking way they did when it happened the first time. Hell, when it happened the second time. Because for some reason they think it's not going to be any different. While I believe that it won't be any different, but might want to live for the moment. Who knows? Who knows? I might eat massive fucking mountains of shit about this. And I honestly hope I do, because most of the shit that I say about the Saints is really based on the fact that I want to be proven wrong. Like, so bad. Like, I get satisfaction from that. Like, the Saints are proving me wrong. I really don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. And I really, wish I wasn't right about some of the shit that I say. But it is what it is, So I'm going to get to my fifth point here. How do I feel about Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston moving forward? And I'm going to start with Taysom Hill first. I think he has the potential to be a pretty good quarterback in the league. A pretty serviceable quarterback with a bit of an excitement factor to him because he can play any other role and he can run the ball. He's basically Tim Tebow, who can catch. But either way, Taysom is an athlete. This is the meme that we all, among Saints fans, like to make. Taysom Hill is an athlete. He is a football player. He can catch, he can run, he can field punts, he can block punts. I'm pretty sure this motherfucker can play defense too. However, the one thing he's not that good at is his main position, and it's quarterback. Because what has he shown us so far? He can move with his legs, but aside from that, he is a one-read meme quarterback. He makes his first read, he doesn't see it, doesn't know what the fuck to do. He'll probably take a sack, he'll probably run. Either way, he'll probably miss a wide open Michael Thomas. He'll probably miss a wide open Emmanuel Sanders. I mean, damn. He'll miss a wide open anybody. And this motherfucker can't throw screens for shit. Every screen that I've seen them run, like Taysom Hill just doesn't have the touch that Drew Brees has when he's throwing or running the screen. And I'm just like concerned that, because like ever since then I haven't seen Alvin Kamara do what he does. I haven't seen Latavius Murray do what he does. Taysom Hill has his faults. He has his limits. I still think he's talented, but he needs to improve. He needs to show that improvement. Otherwise, he's really not going to be playing for many teams. And we ain't going to get anywhere with him if Sean Payton decides to stick with him. Now, that's not to say that I feel this way about Jameis Winston, who I've watched him play for the Buccaneers when they drafted him. He's a bit of a wild card. He was a first-round pick in 2015. First overall, actually. He was the first pick in that entire draft. He's got mountains of talent. He passed for 5,000 plus yards one year. And like I said, did the whole infamous 30 for 30 season. I think he passed like 2 more interceptions than touchdowns. But it was like all in the 30 range. And I remember his last play with the Buccaneers being a fucking pick 6. And that's just something that's always plagued Jameis Winston. He can't stop turning the ball over. He's not as accurate as Drew Brees, but you know, that comes with time. He's much younger than Taysom Hill, so I'm sure that our quarterback coaches will iron that out of him. But he needs to stop turning the fucking ball over, man. That's the one thing that every Saints fan will fucking say, to cover Taysom Hill's ass every time he fumbles, you know? Oh, well, if Jameis was in there, he would have thrown such and such pick 6s. We'd be down 1,000,000 points. Like, that is such a stupid fucking take, and I hate it, man. It's not okay for Jameis to throw pick 6s and interceptions. I understand that. But it's not okay for Taysom Hill to do that either. In fact, it's really not okay for him to fumble at very inopportune times. Something that we chastise Jameis Winston for almost doing. Something that we thought Teddy Bridgewater was going to do when he took over for Drew Brees, like last year. And it's just so, it's so stupid. Like, people are making excuses for him. Like, they're saying, oh, the line didn't block. Oh, the receiver didn't catch it at that time. Like, that's literally all they're saying. Like, the lines didn't block. And it's like, well, yeah. They didn't block because Taysom Hill held on to the fucking ball too long. Like, missed his first fucking read. He didn't see anything else. Probably wanted to run. And fumbled the ball because he has no ball security. He has baby hands. And it's like, I don't know where we're going to go from here because we have 2 quarterbacks who have 2 turnover issues. One just happens to be white and the other happens to be black. And I don't think Jameis Winston is really much of a running quarterback. He is definitely a pocket guy. But the guy can sling it downfield. And if he's passing for 5,000 yards, and I mean, he didn't do that shit on accident. Let's be real. The boy has talent, and I want to see him flourish with the Saints if he ever has a chance to. And if he doesn't, then it is what it is. He didn't flourish with us. Hopefully we didn't pay too much to keep him. Taysom Hill, on the other hand, we paid a little bit too much for a QB that should be on the 3rd string. But that's just my take on him. You know, I would rather Jameis Winston. But, you know, it is what it is. We're playing with Taysom Hill for a reason. And if he can win against the Chiefs, then I can soften up my words on him. And I really hope he does outplay, in some way, outplay Patrick Mahomes. That would be so fucking great to see. Alright, here's my 6th point. How do I feel about this team moving forward? Honestly, I mean, I'm not very optimistic. But at the same time, I'm not going to sit here and say, fuck the season, who cares? Because like I said, they still won 10 games in a row. No, they won 9 games in a row, excuse me. They have 10 wins under their belt. And, like, not every good team is going to have, like, sexy wins every time. Like the Super Bowl champion Saints in 2009, lost to a 2-win Buccaneers squad at home after getting beat by a mediocre Cowboys team. And they still went on to win the Super Bowl that year. It happens, dog. Like, it happens. Hell, I think the eventual Super Bowl champion 49ers in the 90s lost to an Eagles squad that started a rookie quarterback, and they got the shit kicked out of them, and they still won the Super Bowl that year. So who knows? They still could do it. It really depends on how they finish this season and how they carry themselves off in the playoffs. If they can get a streak going on in the playoffs, I think we've got a chance. And that sounds incredibly fucking obvious, but that's the truth. They can get a streak going on in the playoffs, they can get hot at the right time, then they can definitely make a Super Bowl. However, me being conditioned by watching this team and knowing the pattern of a Sean Payton coach team, I don't see that happening. I'm not going to sit here and say, believe what I'm believing, think like I do, because it's not fucking healthy. If you think that they're going to go to the Super Bowl, then by all means, think that, man. I applaud you. Like, honestly, I envy you. I envy the fact that you can think this way. Meanwhile, I try to do it and something just stops me from thinking about it. But we'll see what happens. So I want to just conclude this shortly by saying that most of the shit that I said in my rant video was, I guess, a little bit wrong, a little bit off base. I was, like I said, fueled from emotion. And it just, listening to it over and over, I sound more stupid. I sound more venomous than I should. I'm acting like the Saints fucking did me something wrong, but at the end of the day, they're just a bunch of fucking, it's just a sports franchise with a group of fucking millionaires that don't care about me. So, they're doing their job. It's a business. And if it doesn't happen, then it doesn't happen. The Saints' motto has always been, wait until next year. So it's I'll be fine. I'm going to watch the games. I'm not going to sit here and say, fuck it. I want to, but I'm not going to, because it's not the right time for that. We're not even done with the season. Let's just hope they, improve moving forward. And after the Chiefs game or so, I'll probably make a video about that. I'm getting in the habit of this shit, so, we'll see where it goes. Anyway, peace out.